Welcome back to Beyond Wisdom, where we explore timeless truths for a more peaceful and meaningful life. In a world where we're constantly asked to define ourselves by careers, opinions, or online profiles, the idea of finding yourself can feel confusing and distant. But long before hashtags and personality tests, ancient traditions offered quiet, enduring paths to self-understanding, ones rooted in nature, silence, and something far deeper than personal branding. Today, we'll explore how ancient wisdom guided people back to their true selves, not by adding more, but by gently peeling back what never really belonged. Many ancient cultures believed that silence wasn't the absence of something. It was the presence of something deeper. In early Taoist thought, silence wasn't just golden. It was sacred. Laozi taught that those who know do not speak. Those who speak do not know. This wasn't a dismissal of words, but a reminder that the truest parts of us live beyond language. In the stillness, people could hear the quiet voice of the self, not the ego, not the ambition, but the awareness behind it all. Similarly, in the desert traditions, among Christian mystics, Sufi dervishes, and Buddhist monks, long periods of silence were used not to escape the world, but to come home to oneself. Today, we fill every gap with sound, distraction, or productivity. But the self doesn't shout, it whispers. And to hear it, we need space. Ancient wisdom taught people to go into nature, to sit by rivers, to walk among trees, to listen not just with their ears, but with their whole being. That was where they remembered who they were. In many traditional societies, identity wasn't tied to productivity or achievement. A person was known by their place in the web of life. As a brother, a mother, a neighbor, a child of the land. Ancient tribes, from the Aboriginal peoples of Australia to the First Nations of North America, did not ask, "What do you do?" but rather, "Who are your people?" or "Where do you come from?" These questions didn't seek a resume. They sought roots. In ancient African traditions, especially in Ubuntu philosophy, a person was a person through other people. I am because we are. Finding oneself then was not a solo journey up a mountain, but a deep belonging within the whole. The modern world tells us we must earn our worth, but ancient wisdom reminds us that we are already worthy. Because we are human, because we exist, because we are part of something greater. In ancient Greece, the words, "Know thyself," were inscribed at the Temple of Apollo in Delphi. But this wasn't a casual slogan. The Delphic path was rigorous. It asked people to question every assumption, face their shadows, and move through suffering with awareness. The Stoics believed in reflecting on death, not to be morbid, but to remember what really matters. Seneca wrote that no man can have a peaceful life who thinks too much about lengthening it. Self-knowledge wasn't about polishing an image. It was about shedding illusions, the ones that keep us chasing things that don't last. In Vedic traditions of India, self-realization was seen as the highest purpose, not just knowing your personality, but knowing your Atman, the soul, beyond change. Through meditation, fasting, chant, and solitude, seekers would slowly peel back layers of identity, roles, fears, cravings, until they came to the still center that had never changed. That was the self, eternal, unshaken, free. In every ancient culture, stories were more than entertainment. They were vessels for wisdom. People found themselves not by looking in the mirror, but by listening to tales of others. In the Mahabharata, a warrior's inner conflict reflected the battle inside every human heart. In the Native American tradition, animal stories taught children about courage, balance, humility, and identity. These stories weren't literal instructions, they were reflections. The character's journey mirrored the listener's journey. That's how people learned. That's how they grew. They found themselves not in self-analysis, but in listening deeply, seeing themselves in a myth, and realizing, I've been here before. Ancient wisdom didn't hand out answers. It held up mirrors and trusted you to see what you needed to see. For most of human history, nature wasn't something separate from the self. It was a reflection of it. The cycles of the moon, the seasons, the migration of animals, all mirrored the human spirit. In Shinto tradition in Japan, every tree, stone, and stream has a spirit, kami, and by walking quietly in nature, people would reconnect with those spirits and, in turn, with themselves. In Celtic cultures, certain groves and springs were considered sacred, places where one could hear the voice of the ancestors. There was a quiet understanding. To know oneself, one must know the land. To be lost in the world was to forget one's connection to the earth. To be found was to stand barefoot on the ground and remember, I belong here. Even now, a walk in the woods, the sound of birds at sunrise, the wind on your face. These things still carry the same medicine. The more we return to nature, the more we return to ourselves. In ancient cultures, identity wasn't a fixed label. It was a living thing. Among the indigenous peoples of the Amazon, a person might shift roles many times, from hunter to healer to teacher, as life called. In Buddhism, the concept of anatta, no fixed self, invites people to stop clinging to identity and instead rest in awareness. The self, in this view, is not a solid object but a process, changing like clouds, flowing like rivers. Trying to find yourself in a permanent sense, then, was not the goal. The goal was to be present with who you are right now, and let that change. The ancient Egyptians saw life as a series of transformations, with the soul, the Ba and Ka, evolving through each phase. You were not just your job, your face, or even your thoughts. You were something moving, growing, responding to the sacred rhythm of life. This idea offers a deep peace. You don't have to have it all figured out. You're not late, you're in motion, and motion is part of the mystery. Many ancient traditions taught that the truest version of yourself is revealed not in isolation, but in how you serve others. In Confucian philosophy, a person's character was known through their relationships, how they treat their parents, their elders, their neighbors. Self-cultivation wasn't about personal fulfillment. It was about becoming a vessel of harmony. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna tells Arjuna that self-realization comes not through escape, but through action without attachment. Doing what is right, not for reward, but because it is true. In Jewish mysticism, the concept of tikkun olam, repairing the world, teaches that in lifting others, we remember our own divine spark. The paradox of ancient wisdom is this: sometimes you find yourself most clearly when you stop looking inward and begin quietly offering what you can to others. A kind word, a steady presence, a hand held without judgment. These moments reveal the soul without needing to name it. The ancient path to finding yourself was never about becoming something new. It was about remembering what had always been there. Beneath the noise, the striving, the distractions, and the roles, there is something unchanging, something steady, something wise. The ancient ones didn't tell us to seek ourselves in mirrors or metrics. They told us to listen to silence, to walk with the earth, to honor our place in the web of life. They reminded us that the self is not a brand, not a performance, not even a fixed idea. It's a living mystery, one best discovered gently, with humility, over time. When was the last time you felt truly like yourself? Not the version you show the world, but the quiet, honest self behind it all. Let us know in the comments. Thanks for watching. If this video brought you value, subscribe to Beyond Wisdom. Until next time, stay calm, stay strong, and stay wise.